Welcome to Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio coverage of Fundraising Day 2013. We're at the Marriott Marquis Hotel in Times Square in New York City, and our subject now is event leadership. With me are Sheila Kelly, Vice President of Development for the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research, and in the middle is Pam Mohr, Executive Director of FACES at NYU Langone Medical Center, and Wendy Kleinman, President of WK Planning Limited. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Wendy, let's start down the other end there. What's the trouble with that nonprofits have, the challenges that they have around event leadership?
Well, I think there are a lot of nonprofits today. Everybody is vying for the same dollars, and everybody's vying for the same audience. Everybody would like to have the same leaders at the helm, many of whom have been overasked. And I think it's also it's identifying, the right match. When you invite somebody to take on a leadership role, it's important that you identify what the organization's needs are, and you try to find the right person to approach that matches and believes in your mission, and who feels that they can help you raise the funds you need.
Okay, Pam, these leadership positions can take a lot of different titles, right?
Correct.
A lot of possibilities. What are acquaint listeners with what the scope is that we're talking about?
It could be anything from being an honoree to an event where you're expected to bring in a certain amount of revenue, either giving it or getting it. It can be whether you're chairing an event. It could be whether you're sitting on a benefit committee, vice chairing an event. There are so many different titles and so many different forms of event leadership. But the most important common theme is that everybody needs to know what their expectations are in advance, so they understand what their role is in your event.
Okay, making expectations very clear.
Correct.
And I guess also goal setting, I guess, Sheila, for the event itself.
Yeah, it's tremendously important to be very clear from the outset what your goals are for the event, both from a revenue perspective and also just what you're trying to achieve for the organization, and making sure that the people that have a leadership role with that event know what they need to do to help achieve that goal. And that, I think, when you find the right people and they know that they are part of something that there's a distinct goal for, they're going to be more willing to sort of step up to the plate and take on what you're asking them to do.
Okay, now we just have about 20 minutes together, so why don't we start at least our focus, and maybe we'll end there, we'll see, with the committees. Okay, your volunteer committees. Sheila, what committees are we looking for to recruit first?
I think it's very event specific. It depends on the kind of event that you're hosting. So if you're hosting a golf event, for example, your committee could be helping you plan the event. They could be helping you with all the details. But if it's your gala, and we have a large gala, really we look to our committees simply for fundraising and for getting new people to come to the event and to help us expand our network. So I think it's about being sort of clear about, with the specific events, what you're looking for people to do.
Okay. And how do you start the recruitment process at the Michael J. Fox Foundation?
For us?
For event volunteers.
For event volunteers, we really do look within our network. We have so many amazing supporters who care about our work. I think that's key. You want to make sure that the people who are involved have a direct connection to your mission and to what you're trying to achieve. And so looking within first before going outside makes a lot of sense, because there are people right there who are going to be willing and able to get involved. And so that's typically where we start. And also people self-select. You will have people within your network who will raise their hand and say, please let me know how I can be of help. And if that person is the right fit, you should take them up on that for sure.
Pam, why don't you acquaint listeners, what's the work of FACES at the NYU Langone Medical Center?
So FACES stands for Finding a Cure for Epilepsy and Seizures. Okay. We are an organization within NYU Langone Medical Center that raises funds for research, education, programs, advocacy for patients with epilepsy and their families.
Okay. And where do you start your recruitment process for event volunteers?
So I've lived two very separate lives, one working for a major healthcare non-for-profit and the other one now at FACES, which has only been 8 months. What's so amazing to me about my job now is that I'm dealing with grateful patient fundraising. So I work directly for Dr. Oren Davinsky, who is the director of the Comprehensive Epilepsy Center at NYU, and we work directly with the people that we impact every day. So where I'm looking for event volunteers or donors or chairs or honorees, they're all people that have been impacted some way by the Comprehensive Epilepsy Center and a recipient of some service that we've provided.
Okay.
So it's building relationships with the existing folks that have been involved and seeing who they know that they want to get involved, and then being introduced to new people. One of the things that we're actually looking to do with our board is to create a board event. We really want to get the word out. People don't know enough about epilepsy and seizures and how common it is. And one of the ways that we want to do that is not just our gala, because not everybody wants to come to a gala. So we're working with our board to develop an event where they invite some of the individuals that they network with so they can hear about what's been going on in the world of epilepsy right here in Manhattan.
Wendy, do you have advice for smaller and maybe mid-sized shops that may not have the internal constituency to look to first for event volunteer leadership?
Well, every organization has somebody who is in charge, and that person is out in the world all the time. So what we do is we try to encourage and remind, whether it's the board or it's an executive director or it's a director of development, or even if it's a small committee made of maybe 2 or 3 people, that they should always remain cognizant of a good candidate in their travels through life, in the workplace or in their social life. We mentioned earlier in the panel, everyone goes to cocktail parties, and many people have jobs, full-time jobs, in addition to the nonprofit work they volunteer for. So, and then, you talk about what you do, and if somebody expresses an interest in wanting to learn more, that's someone who could be a potential candidate to get involved in your organization. So that's one way of looking at the outside to bring people in.
Okay.
If you don't have the infrastructure to pull from, like a donor, a strong donor base.
Always encouraging those conversations, and basically that's essentially good branding too.
Yes.
People should, people well outside fundraising should always be talking well about the organization and know what its needs are, I think, and those needs might be event leadership, volunteering.
Exactly, and I think it's learning how to talk about what the organization does also in a very friendly, approachable manner.
Okay.
And to make it interesting, because people want to know who you are and what you like to do and where you spend your time.
What's our next step then, Wendy? You're the consultant on the panel. What's our next step after we've identified some people who are potential leaders of the event? How do we start to approach? Or what should we be talking about with them?
Well, I think you can meet on a one-to-one basis, maybe initially, to explain all the different areas where the organization might need some help. It could be joining the committee. There might be a greater interest in the board, which has a bigger picture approach, or the gala committee, which might be specifically for one event. And everybody has their different strengths. Some people are better at selling tables. Some people are better at bringing in auction items. Some people are better at selling journal ads. So I think it's having that discussion and trying to find someone's comfort zone and really assess their capabilities and where their strengths are.
Okay, right.
And I think it's a mutual decision sometimes.
And that makes a lot of sense for all volunteer positions, really.
Yes.
From the board to someone who's doing something not as time-consuming, but we want to be engaging people where their interests are. Okay. Yeah. Sheila, Pam, do you want to share how you approach people for these kinds of positions? Anybody want to? What's your first step?
For us, really, it's the relationship building and stewardship is sort of the most important piece, right? And I think to Wendy's point, people have different strengths, and so when you find someone within your network or someone who's new to you, realizing what they want to be involved in, there might be someone who is very interested in events. There might be someone who's just interested in helping to find new donors. There's lots of different ways that you can can engage with people. And it's what we refer to at the Fox Foundation is giving someone a seat at the table. Having them feel that they have a separate work outside of what they do at the foundation, but they are an extension of what we do, and making sure that they feel that they are armed with the right tools and the right messaging, so that they can speak to the work of the foundation as well. I think that's hugely important. You want all the people who are associated with your foundation and with your mission out there talking about the things that are important. And it's, I think, the job of the internal people to make sure that they have all the right information at their hands.
And the support that they need.
Absolutely.
Right. What do we do now? So we've recruited. Suppose there are some committee members who aren't quite pulling their weight, Pam. I imagine that gets frustrating to those who are. How do we deal with that situation?
I've dealt with that situation many times.
Okay.
So I think the first thing that actually needs to happen is, and we had talked about this earlier, is roles and expectations. I think that when you're working with an event committee, the most important thing that you can do from the beginning is give them the roles and expectations so they understand exactly what's expected of them. This way there's really no question about what they're supposed to be doing and what the result is supposed to be.
Okay.
These committee members need to be treated as leaders, because most of them are probably leaders in their industry. They need to understand that the event that they're working on, the funds raised for this event are directly impacting the mission of the organization, and they have to take ownership, and they have to own the actual event and understand that. What we've talked about this earlier during our session, what tends to happen is that if you do have individuals that aren't pulling their weight on the committee, but you have people that are, many times those people will almost self-select away from the committee because they understand and recognize that they're not doing what needs to be done in order to make it happen, and in order to reach that goal.
All right, that's helpful. What if they don't start self-selecting?
Sometimes it can be a problem. Obviously, I'm a shoot from the hip kind of person. If there's somebody who's not pulling their weight and they're bringing the rest of the committee down, it would probably be an individual conversation with that volunteer and letting them know that this is really what we expect for the level of what this event is. Perhaps this isn't the right place for that particular volunteer. Maybe there's another part of the organization, a lower level event, some sort of program. We understand that they're completely passionate about the mission and the cause, and they want to continue to remain involved, but maybe this particular event isn't the right match for them, and let's identify what might work. And as long as you can find that place for them, they'll be happy. They don't want to be a part of something where they feel like they can't give what the other people are giving. That's also kind of it's not a comfortable place to be, I would think.
Sheila, what about having the committee organize themselves in terms of who's going to be a leader or who's going to take on what? Do you prefer to see the committees decide that among themselves, or do you appoint people, once they've agreed to be part of a committee, appoint them to certain positions?
We typically help with a structure. It's really more apparent in some of our smaller events that are led through our community fundraising arm with Team Fox.
Okay.
We find that people really do want to know what we need of them. And as we were talking about in the panel, people that do this for a living, we would probably, if we were all on a committee, we would self-select ourselves, right? And we would be able to divide ourselves up, but that's not everyone's core strength. And so I think guidance in this area is key. And if you have a group of individuals that are passionate and they want to help and they want to get involved, helping them with a structure is very important in terms of the overall success of the event.
Okay. Anybody want to add to having the committee, Pam or Wendy, having the committee decide among themselves and versus lending structure?
I think that there are some individuals, much like Sheila had said, there are some individuals that might know. If we were on an event committee, we would probably know what we would be good at.
Yeah.
Whether I would be really great at sponsorships and Sheila would be really great at ticket sales or whatever that looks like. And every so often, you obviously want to honor the request of a committee member that says, I really want to work on this. And what I usually do with a committee when I am dividing them into subcommittees committees is I give them an interest form, and they're going to fill it out, and they're going to indicate what they want. Obviously, I don't want to put somebody in a role where they're selling something if their strength might be planning. But most of my committees that I have formed all have some sort of fundraising, commitment to it. But that level might vary depending on each individual person. So I don't necessarily let them make their, they can select what they want, but in terms of the overall leadership structure and setting that up and dividing them up and letting them know, and I've handled that as a development professional.
Right. Okay. I'm sorry, Wendy, was there something you wanted to add to that?
Well, as consultants, we're a little bit more objective, and sometimes we can observe a committee in a different way because we're not dealing with them every day like Pam and Sheila might be, in the sense that they're internal. So, we're asked for our opinion about almost everything when it comes to putting an event together. So, and that includes sometimes helping to identify who we feel or who we would recommend to be the chairs, for example, who shows the strength for that. And because sometimes the committee members themselves are just too close to one another that they can't single each other out. So we're standing a little bit apart, and we could say, well, we think that she would be a great chair, and that person would be a great co-chair, and this person probably should lead the auction chair, for example, because they've been so influential and busy in obtaining auction items. So sometimes the strengths are more apparent to us than they are even to the committee members themselves.
Okay.
So we just help them identify that.
Okay. What else can we say about these event leadership committees that I haven't asked you about? More advice around this? Go ahead, Pam. Yeah.
I think one of the things that also came up in the most recent panel that we just had is the importance of treating the committee as a leadership group and treating them like a professional group of individuals who are there to help move the mission of the organization forward. Giving them, in addition to setting the expectations that I mentioned before, making sure that they have all the tools that they need in order to be the best that they can be. Whether that's making sure they have a budget, making sure they have a timeline. They need to understand what this event needs to gross. They need to understand the expenses behind the event, what it needs to net at the end of the day as well. They need to have those clear job expectations. One of the best examples that I had given is making sure that, if, let's say, you have a committee and they're actually submitting a list and they're soliciting individuals, making sure at the end of each week there's a spreadsheet that's organized by solicitor, so every single person on the committee understands what money's come in, who's responsible for bringing it in, how much, and where they need to be.
You do this on a weekly basis?
I'll do it on a weekly basis during event season, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think it's just the same way that you would handle a business. You want to handle your event committee the same way. They want to understand. They need to understand that you're taking this seriously. This is serious. Without this money, the mission of your organization is not going to move forward. And I think if you treat it that way, they will treat it that way. And it's a mutually respectful and professional relationship.
Sheila, more you want to add?
I couldn't agree more. I mean, transparency is imperative when you're dealing with planning of events and when you're working with a committee. They need to know exactly what the expense structure looks like, what the revenue expectations are, so that they can feel a part of it. Event fundraising is expensive. It's one of the more expensive ways to raise a dollar, and anyone that does it for a living knows that. And so there's always that balance of making sure that you're keeping your costs down, that you're maximizing your investments. And again, many of these committees are filled with people who run their own businesses, who have great perspective in this area, and using them to the best of their abilities actually makes your event even better.
It sounds like this kind of work for a volunteer can be great cultivation to be maybe enhance their own giving, or maybe expand their volunteer roles in the future. If there's that kind of transparency and they see that it is run like a business, as you're both saying, it sounds like great cultivation for more activity, whatever form that takes.
we've seen people move at the Fox Foundation from someone who just gets involved at the Team Fox level, who running a marathon and fundraising from their peers, to then joining our leadership council, which is sort of a junior board of directors, and that level of engagement just continues. But it's about making sure that you're cultivating that relationship from the beginning in the right way, especially for people who want to have a greater involvement with your foundation.
And I think it's giving them that experience too. It's making sure that they're having a positive experience. One of the best feelings that I have is when I've transitioned a committee that might not have been functioning as well on the fundraising side, and giving them these tools and providing, changing the structure of a committee so that it functions the way we've been talking about, and then having them get so excited about it. And then when they come to the event and they see this, seamless, amazing gala, golf, cocktail party, whatever it looks like, they want to get more involved, and then they want to recruit other people to get more involved. So in turn, by doing it this way, it might be a little bit more work on our end, but in the end, it's going to increase our revenue, and it's also going to expand our relationships within the whole community.
We have to leave it there, ladies. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Pleasure, all three. Thank you. Sheila Kelly, seated closest to me, is the Vice President for Development at the Michael J. Fox Foundation for Parkinson's Research. Pam Mohr is Executive Director of FACES, Finding a Cure for Epilepsy and Seizures at the NYU Langone Medical Center. And Wendy Kleinman is President of WK Planning Limited. Again, thanks very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you for being with me. Tony Martignetti, Nonprofit Radio coverage of Fundraising Day 2013. Thanks so much.